Right then, so next one down is team leaders or fire team leaders, and these are directly under the squad leader and are command one fire team, usually of about 4 men. And these guys are basically the cutting edge of what's going on the ground. They'll relay everything to their squad leader, what's happening, so if they come into contact, he'll be telling them what's going on, where they need more men, whether they're being flanked, all that kind of thing. And he'll basically receive his orders from his squad leader, and then he'll decide the best way to deploy his 4 men in order to achieve that objective in conjunction with what his squad leader is telling him to do. It's also his responsibility to make sure that his squad members are fully aware of what's going on, so where they're going, what the rules of engagement are, what formation they're moving in. He'll decide what formation his fire team's moving in accordance with the formation of the main squad. So when it comes to combat, he's responsible for directing his team to fire, making sure they're in the best possible position in order to make their team fully effective. So he's going to try and find cover and concealment for his men and direct their fire to take out as many enemies as possible. Right, same as the squad leader, the fire team leader needs to be able to make decisions objectively. So if he sees that he's about to get overrun, he has to accept that he needs to pull back or call for support rather than just trying to stick at it, because that's what his squad leaders asked him to do. Because if you're in a hopeless situation and you're all just going to get killed, there's no point in hanging on, because at the end of the day, a dead team's no good to anybody. Okay, so next one down is going to be the rifleman. And basically the rifleman is just the bread and butter of any infantry unit. He's going to be like the spearhead of most assault. He's just your bog standard grunt. So a rifleman needs to be able to operate in multiple environments, so in both attack and defence, because like I say, he's going to be the most basic unit there, so he needs to do a multitude of tasks. And it's also important that he's highly familiar with how to use his weapon, which is generally going to be some kind of assault rifle, possibly a grenade launcher. So he needs to operate, like I say, in both an offensive capacity. So if there's ever going to be an assault, chances are it's going to be your rifleman who's leading in there, because you obviously don't want your medic or your machine gunner charging in first. So he's going to be the spearhead of most assault. Now, like I say, it's important. You may hear the phrase, everyone's a rifleman first and foremost, and this is quite apt actually, because chances are, in fact it's almost 100% certain that at one point or another, no matter what role you like to play in game, you will be engaged on the ground with using a rifle. So everybody needs to basically know how to operate as a rifleman to some extent or another, have a basic knowledge of how to work in a fire team, how to use a rifle, that kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, even if you're always a pilot, helicopters can get shot down. If you're always a tank driver, tanks can get disabled. So you never tell what's going to come up, and you can never know when you might need to be pounding the ground with a rifle in your hand. So as part of a fire team, it's important that a rifleman does exactly what his fire team leader says, and it's his job basically when they're on the move to just be looking everywhere at the time, looking for the enemy. But when he does, it's also important that he exercises patience, because if you just see an enemy and you immediately start blasting off with your rifle, you can just ruin everything for the entire operation. One ill-conceived shot by a rifleman can just destroy an entire plan that's taken ages to form. So, yeah, standard kit for a rifleman is some kind of assault rifle, possibly an M203, frag and smoke grenades, and it's sometimes a rifleman will be tasked with a specific job, such as being an AT rifleman, or light AT rifleman, or an ammo bearer for something like a machine gun, and in which case it would obviously be given more specific kit. Next up, you've got your AT and your AA specialists. And these are basically riflemen, but they're also armed with anti-tank or anti-aircraft weaponry. So this can be anything from an M72 Law, which is just a light thing, weighs about 2 kilos, right up to a javelin, which requires usually about 2 men to assist in using it. And your AA specialist, the main one that you're going to be using is the Stinger, or you may come across other stuff like the Strela and the Igla. Anyway, their primary role is much the same as a rifleman. However, they're not quite going to be on the cutting edge of any assault as much as a rifleman, because obviously they're carrying an AA or an AT weapon, which is pretty valuable on the battlefield, because if you come up against a tank or an aircraft, they're going to be the only ones that can do anything about it. Because you can shoot at a helicopter with an assault rifle as much as you like.
User joined your channel.
Nothing's going to happen to it. So basically, the job of the AT or AA specialist is to firstly ensure that his weapon's in good working condition all the time, and that he's ready to fire at a moment's notice, and also that he is properly confident with his weapon and he knows his own limits. So he has to be able to decide if his team leader asks him, shoot that tank, he has to be able to instantly decide whether he can make that shot or not with a good chance of a hit. Because if you just try and make a difficult shot just for the sake of it, and you're not confident you're going to hit, you might just end up wasting your shot. And obviously AT and AA rounds are quite precious on the field, because you can only carry 1 or 2 at a time usually. So you have to make sure that you're not wasting your ammo by only going for what we call high probability shots.
Base, we have an aircraft down in your vicinity.
Question.
Can you locate and
Go on.
secure the craft?
So say you're an AT and like your commander, your leader, fire team leader says shoot that tank, but you don't have enough confidence in you. Can you just say like, I can't make that shot?
Yeah, because at the end, your fire team leader usually would rather you save your shot and make it count than just hit and hope, and then you end up wasting it. Usually in that situation you'd say, I don't think I can make that shot, so you'd either A, pass your launcher to somebody who's more confident with it, or your fire team leader will just say, alright, just move position to somewhere you can find a better shot. But at the end of the day they don't want you wasting your round, so they're not going to try and force you into doing something you're not confident that you're not confident in hitting.
Just to answer that on like a general term, soldiers are not puppets. Everybody's got their own mind, everybody's got their own abilities, so if there's anything that you're ever unclear of, uncertain of, or you don't think you'll be able to complete a task, it's up to you to decide that. It's up to you to let your team leaders know what you can and can't do.
So basically the differences between a machine gun and anybody else are machine guns, like I say, their ability to very rapid fire. Generally heavier than a normal rifle, meaning that machine gunners have to work as a team usually with 2 or 3 guys, so you'll have one machine gunner, an assistant, and sometimes even an ammo bearer if you're on a long mission. So he asked obviously a fire team leader to direct his machine gun. It's machine gunner's responsibility to make sure that if he's in position by his fire team leader, that he points that out to him and seeks out a better position. Because your fire team leader might say, go hide behind that wall. If you get there and discover that you can't see anything, there's no point in just sitting there because you've been told to. So one important thing for the machine gunner is also that he makes efficient use of the ammunition he's got. Obviously the nature of machine gun ammunition is quite heavy and comes in large quantities, so you have to make sure, also due to the rapid fire of a machine gun, that you're not just blasting off all your rounds and wasting it. Because if you're on a long mission,
in your channel timed out.
you have to, keep checking your ammo, make sure you're not using it too much, going crazy. Usually do this by just firing in bursts rather than just spraying and
User entered your channel.
One of the other things that an MG can be used for is anti-vehicle attacks. So say you're camped up by a road, you get some kind of light vehicle, technical, UAZ coming down. You can employ an MG to pretty effectively take those out, take the driver out, take the tyres out. You can even use the MGs to take out, light helicopters like the Huey. They're pretty much made of papier-mâché. So, an MG can be pretty good at taking those out. Obviously, an MG is a support weapon, so you're never really going to see an MG being sent out in the forefront of an assault. They're going to generally be hanging back, providing support from a distance. They're not going to be, storming buildings with an MG. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I've got a question. Suppression, how well does that work on AI?
User in your channel timed
I'm
out.
not 100% sure actually. To some extent I know it can work, because basically, if you put a burst of MG fire over the AI's head, they're gonna A, run for cover, so they'll stop moving, or B, they'll just hit the deck. So you're at least gonna slow them down with MG fire, if not stop them entirely. And at the end of the day, if you've got an AI behind a wall and you're putting fire on it, even if he's not suppressed, if you've got that wall covered well enough, he's going to stick his head out and you're just going to be able to kill him anyway, which in a way is better than just keeping him suppressed.
You will find, I found personally, that they will stop shooting as well and start running for cover.
Yeah, if you've got an MG set up, generally it's advisable to do around 2-second bursts or 4 to 8 round bursts.
Would you use short bursts on a longer range?
Yeah, because basically this allows you to A, stops your barrel overheating, prevents your weapon from jamming, B, makes it
User
more
entered
accurate,
your channel.
C, means that you can conserve your ammunition a bit more, and also, finally, allows your assistant gunner to see where your rounds are dropping and help you adjust. So if you say fire 1 burst and it's low, your assistant can say, you know, just aim higher, rather than if you're just constantly blasting off, then, you know, your assistant has got no room to say, you know, you're doing it wrong.
How would you replace the barrel?
You got your medics, and obviously a medic is a vital part of any squad. Usually it'll be attached to the squad leader. So rather than, I know when we go out sometimes just on a day-to-day basis we'll have maybe 2 medics between 8 people, but generally you just have 1 for a squad, and he'll stick with the squad leader, be directed by him to where he needs to go. And obviously the medic's job is to look after any wounded troops in his squad, or anywhere else that he's needed in fact. And he also needs to make sure that he's able to prioritise the wounded, so who needs help first, you know, who's nearly dead, who can actually be saved, who can't be, you know, who's beyond help. So, and also, he needs to be able to he needs to be able to decide if he can fix somebody up in the field, or if he needs to call for extra support, you know, get them pulled out. Now, it is absolutely imperative that a medic doesn't put himself in harm's way deliberately, you know, because at the end of the day, if you've got a man down, your medic runs out and gets killed, then, you know, that 1 casualty of your medic being killed can turn into, you know, 5, 6, 7 extra casualties because you've no longer got anybody to look after the wounded. So 1 casualty can quickly just multiply if your medic's down. So basically, obviously, if you're a medic, you've got a guy wounded out in the open, you know, your instinct is going to be to run out to him, you know, try and get him back. But if you're a medic, you don't want to be doing this, because basically you need to keep yourself safe at all times for the reasons that I just stated. So if you have got a man out in the open, your best bet is to say to a rifleman or a fighting leader or something, look, there's a guy out there, we need to go and get him, and you can designate somebody else to run out and grab him. So it saves you putting yourself at risk, and you can still get that wounded guy back. So, like a squad leader and fighting leader, in fact, medic needs to be able to stay objective, and he needs to be able to view the situation from a kind of a detached point of view. So, like I said earlier, he needs to be able to make the tough decisions about, you know, who he needs to help first, you know, who's beyond help, you know, and so basically, if also prioritising which troops need to be got up before others. So, if you say being attacked from the air, then a medic may decide that the AA specialist needs to be taken care of first, even if he's got 2 other guys that also need taken care of.
They do use the coloured smokes to signify certain things. Green, I think, means that they're under attack and they're requesting support back up.
The simple answer with smokes is that they don't mean anything unless they've been assigned something before a mission.
Can I just interrupt you? We've got 2 hinds approaching the base.
Oh shit, yep. Oh no.
Base.